Welcome to the APSS Bookselling University course on how to market your book without social media. I'm Sandra Beckwith, and I'm your instructor. Just to give you a little bit of background about me, I am the owner of BuildBookBuzz.com. In my past life, I was a publicist, a product publicist, and I won several national awards for product publicity excellence. Like you, I'm also an author. I've written 3 traditionally published books and 1 self-published book. My book marketing blog at buildbookbuzz.com/blog has been ranked number 7 in the world among thousands of book marketing blogs. And I'm really proud of that because it's based on search engine results, traffic, and content quality. My site has also been recognized by 4 groups for authors and writers for excellence and helpfulness. So you know all of the content at buildbookbuzz.com is author tested, and you know that the content in this course is also author tested. So let's dig into this course. One thing you want to start out with is downloading the handouts that are included in your course materials. There are 2 of them. One is a PDF file called How to Respond to HARO Requests, and HARO might be new to you, but we will cover that later on in the course. So don't worry about that now, just download it. And the other is a list of all of the links I am referencing in the course. I will have on screen URLs, and you won't have to worry about grabbing a screenshot or anything like that. They will all be listed in another PDF download. So make sure you either hit the pause button and grab those now or get them at the end of the course. Here is what you're going to be learning. This is our agenda. We're going to talk about why what we call a social media free zone works for book marketing. Why you can get away with marketing your book without using social media. Then we're going to go through 9 alternatives, what they are and how to use them. And then at the end, we're going to talk about which of these 9 might be the best for you and your book. So let's just jump right in it. Why a social media free zone? Why would this work for you and your book? Here's the thinking behind this. There was a time when we didn't have the internet and we didn't have social media. And yet, remarkably enough, books were bestsellers. I know all about this firsthand because I got my first book contract based on media exposure before the internet was even a thing. This was back in the early 90s. I launched a subscription newsletter that explained male behavior to women. And I got so much news media attention off of the first issue of just 8 pages that I got calls and letters from literary agencies and book publishers asking me, would I like to turn this newsletter into a book? And this was all off of the first issue, which it just kind of blew me away. But in any case, I was able to use publicity to generate so much global media attention that I got a book contract and a really, really nice advance. So that's just one bit of evidence that shows you that you can succeed at book marketing without having a lot of Facebook friends, without having a lot of likes on a Facebook page, without people sharing your images or your posts or your content, without having to figure out what is the point of a tweet, and without really even taking a single photo, if that's what you choose. Not everybody likes social media. It doesn't come intuitively to everybody. And if you're one of those who would just rather avoid it, then you are really going to like the 9 options we're going to go through now. Here are the alternatives. I'll just quickly zip through them here, but then we're going to dig into each one of them, one at a time. So there's guest blogging, book fairs, publicity, which is media attention, podcast interviews, public speaking, using email for marketing, book signings, group events with other authors, and making appearances at book clubs. Let's start with guest blogging. Some people are familiar with this term, some aren't. So let me just explain what it is. Guest blogging can take two forms. Either you are a guest contributing content on somebody else's blog, or you have invited somebody to be a guest on your blog and they provide content on your blog. Guest blogging can take a number of forms. More often than not, you are writing a post, an article for somebody else's blog, but sometimes it could be a video interview, it could be an audio interview, or it could be an emailed question and answer, a Q&A. More often than not, though, you are writing an article that will be of interest to your hosts, readers, and followers. Likewise, if you are hosting somebody else on your site, they are providing you with what is probably an article. Now, both are effective for book marketing, but if I had to recommend one over the other, I would recommend that you guest blog for others. If you had to pick just one of the two, I would recommend that you be the content provider, because that will give that host's followers an option to learn more about you, who you are, depending on what you're writing about, but who you are, your writing style and quality. And it gives you an opportunity to engage with that blogger's followers. So when you provide the content for somebody else's blog, you're just getting more opportunities to meet and engage with a whole new audience. And it, like I said, it works the other way when you invite somebody to your site and they bring their followers with them. But if you had to pick one, I'd say you be the guest blogger first. So what's involved? The first thing you have to do is know your target audience. You need to know as much as possible about your target audience. This is who will love your book. And that's because the more you know about them, the better a job you will do of finding blogs that reach that target audience. You figure out and find your target audience by putting some time into doing some research, and you can find a lot of the information you need online with good Google searches. I've included a link here that would be useful to romance writers, just as an example to show you what kind of demographic information is available for genre and category books online. At this link, if you write romance, you'll learn all kinds of demographic information about your readers. So if you don't know your target audience already, spend some time figuring it out, because that is really important to all of your book marketing tactics, not just those that don't include social media. So let's say you figured out your target audience, you know who they are. Your next step is to determine the blogs that reach that audience. And you can look at it from two different perspectives. One is looking at it from the standpoint of genre, and this applies more to fiction than to nonfiction. And fiction genre might be cozy mysteries, romance, fantasy, young adult, sci-fi, you name it. There are many different genres, and there are many blogs that serve the readers of those genres. So start there. Topic, which is also quite relevant to fiction and super relevant to nonfiction, is really exactly what it means. If you have written a book on, say, how to stay fit over 50, you are going to find blogs on that specific topic, how to stay fit over 50. And you are going to find blogs about post-50 lifestyle as well. And both of those blogs would be good targets for a book on how to stay fit over the age of 50. Now let me jump back to fiction for a minute and talk a little bit about topic for fiction. What a lot of novelists, writers, a lot of fiction authors overlook is the opportunity to contribute to blogs based on topic rather than genre. For example, maybe your novel is set in a medieval land and perhaps centers around a medieval castle. It's likely that there are a couple of blogs at least devoted to people who are fascinated by medieval castles. You should be targeting them with a guest blog post about why that's the setting for your novel, and maybe about the research that you did and why you chose the medieval castles that you chose for your book. Point is, for fiction, look first to genre, and then look second to topics based on topics or themes covered in your book. And when you take that second step, you will really stand out from your competitors and do much better because you will be a little more creative than the average novelist. So I strongly recommend that. So as you think about what blogs reach your target audience, start first with the blogs you read. If you are a YA novelist, you probably are already monitoring some blogs that address that audience or YA authorship. So start there. Start with what you're already familiar with, and then expand outward from there. You can use Google searches, and that involves typing your genre and the word blogs into the search box, like romance novel blogs. It could be fitness book blogs or gluten-free cooking blogs. Think of your topic or your genre and the word blogs. There are also a couple of blog-specific search sites. Think of them as blog search engines. The one I've got here on the screen is blogsearchengine.org. So do a quick search for blog search engines, and you will find a few more of those as well. And then type your genre or topic into the search box to get a list of blogs that reach your audience. Once you've got a list of blogs that you think would be really helpful in getting you in front of your book's target audience, grab their contact information, which you can always find on a blog. More often than not, put it that way, you can find on the blog, and send an email with a few ideas for blog topics that you will write for that site. It's a good idea to propose a couple of ideas rather than just one, because you are less likely to be rejected if you do that. If you give the blogger a couple of different choices, then you're giving them the opportunity to think, well, that doesn't work, but that might work. Or maybe that third idea, if we tweaked it just a little bit this way, that could possibly work. So give them a few choices. That also helps the blogger see that you understand what's on that blog. And you do want to make sure you do understand what that blogger uses. By the way, for example, there's really no point in pitching a blog that never uses guest blog posts. And you will figure that out when you visit the blog and click around and see what kinds of content you use. And let me just make a mental pause here and point out that with everything we're going to be talking about in this course, you do want to become familiar with the people and their content, the people you're going to be contacting. You want to become familiar with their site, their content, whatever it might be, because one of the keys to success is doing that homework, is doing your background research and becoming familiar with the kinds of material they use so that you are offering them exactly what they might be looking for. So send an email to that blog owner, say a few kind words about the blog. Always nice to suck up to the owner. Take it from the voice of experience here. I am far more receptive to somebody who says to me in an email pitch, I've been following your blog for a couple of years and I love the effort you put into helping authors. I've picked up a lot of new ideas from you. I am the author of a book that I think might be interesting to your readers, and I'd like to be a guest blogger for you. I hope you'll consider that. Here are a couple of ideas I think might be a good fit for your audience. Bullet 1, bullet 2, bullet 3, then wrap it up with, what do you think? Any interest in any of these ideas, or is there something else you'd like me to write about? I look forward to hearing from you. And then, add your signature. Something that simple can get the attention, but What works is is sucking up in the beginning, showing that you're familiar with the blog, offering a couple of ideas, and being open to other possibilities as well. If you don't hear back right away, and that happens, and you know why, it's because we're all so busy. If you don't hear back right away, just follow up, send a couple follow-up messages. Generally speaking, I stop at my second follow-up message, so that's 3 contacts, the pitch, and 2 follow-ups. And when they do say, yeah, I'd love that, make sure you follow their instructions, because when you don't follow their instructions for things like length, um, providing a headshot if they want it, providing your book cover if they want it, using subheads and bullet points in your article, if you don't do that, you're creating work for that blogger, and that's not your goal. Your goal is to make life easier for that blogger, not to create work for them. So just be careful that you follow those instructions. So our next one is book fairs. Book fairs take different forms. They can be very large, they can be very small. They can be regional in nature, they can be very local in nature. But generally speaking, a book fair is a public event, a public gathering that connects authors with readers, quite simply put. Some of them are just displays where authors have an opportunity to sell books and engage with readers. Others have official programming, within a facility with panels and panelists that address readers and panels that address authors. There's, a lot of times there's also that instructional content that goes with it. So they're a good opportunity for certain kinds of authors. And in particular, they're a good opportunity for authors who are a little more extroverted than they are introverted, because you are going to be communicating face to face with readers and others. So you need to be able to engage them, in a selling sort of a situation, and you need to be comfortable while you're doing that. So I think it's better for extroverts than for introverts. I recommend starting out locally with smaller events if you've not done this sort of thing before, because some people love it and some people don't. And I would hate to see you invest in, say, traveling from Chicago to Florida for a very big book fair in Florida before you really know that this is a good fit for your skills and your personality and even your book. So test it out locally with smaller events first. And even before you test it, really work to become a master of the hand sell. And you can see I've got a link here to an article on my blog that explains about the art of the hand sell and really teaches you that you need to be more assertive than you might normally be. Again, this might come more naturally for extroverts than it does to introverts. But you do, to really get the value out of a book fair, you do need to be able to master the art of the hand sell. And I also recommend that when possible, try to get the most mileage out of participating in a book fair by getting on a panel as well. When you become a presenter, it elevates your status and says to those who are attending that you are respected for your knowledge on the topic you're speaking about, whether the topic is how to create more memorable characters, or the state of the book publishing industry today. Whatever that topic might be, if you're on a panel, it says to people, oh, this person knows what he or she is talking about. And any time you can elevate your status, grab it. That's a good thing, obviously. So our third topic is one of my favorites, is publicity. Now, I mentioned already that this is a topic I know a lot about. I've won a few publicity awards. So there's a lot I could tell you, but not enough time to tell you everything. So let's focus on what's most important. And the first thing that's important is knowing what publicity is. Publicity is that free, and you heard that word, didn't you? Free media exposure you get when you or your book are mentioned in the news. This could come from an interview with you. It could come from just a reference to your book by title as a resource, or it could be an interview with you. Ideally, actually, it's an interview with you that uses your book title as your credential. In my case, it would be Sandra Beckwith, author of Get Your Book in the News, How to Write a Press Release That Announces Your Book. My book title gives me some credibility. That credibility is why I'm interviewed for whatever that article or news segment is. It is not advertising. Advertising you pay for, and because you pay for it, you control it. You control the message, you control what the message looks like, and you control when the message runs. Advertising is an ad, and you can only buy it. Publicity is far more valuable than advertising, and yet you can't buy it. It's free. Publicity is at least 10 times as effective as advertising because of the implied editorial endorsement that comes with you being selected for an interview or your book being mentioned. So, how do you get this priceless publicity? Let's zero right in on what's most relevant for authors today. If you do nothing more, subscribe to a newsletter called HARO, which is the acronym for Help a Reporter Out, and you subscribe at helpareporter.com. Now, HARO is a 3 times a day email that connects journalists with sources. So what that means is, and I use this, by the way, a lot as a writer when I'm writing article assignments. I use HARO to find sources. It's one reason I'm so familiar with it. But let's use me as an example. I might be working on an article for a trade magazine that I write for regularly. So I go onto the HARO site, and using a form they provide, I type in a message that says exactly what I'm looking for. I'm looking for sources who can talk about X for a magazine article on Y that will appear in magazine Z. And then I'll add something like need to finish interviews by and the date. Interviews will be by telephone. Only respond if you're a good fit for this. My request goes out in one of those 3 daily newsletters. That's morning, afternoon, early evening. Then people like you who are authors and experts scan these 3 times a day emails. These emails will include anywhere from, say, 20 to maybe 35 of these queries from journalists. You will scan them and you will look for opportunities to be interviewed. So one of your downloads is my How to Respond to HARO Queries cheat sheet. This gives you everything you need to know to respond to these queries so you get interviewed and so your content gets used and so you get mentioned. And trust me, you want this, because I'd say probably half of the responses I get on any given query are useless. And they're useless because the responses are things like, I know a lot about this, call me. And that's it. That's all it says. Well, so I respond real easily by hitting delete because I have no idea who that person is or why they do know a lot about it or why I would call them. So that gets deleted. I hear from people who say, I don't know anything about the topic you need to interview people about. However, I know a lot about this other topic. So if you're ever doing an article about this other topic, please call me. Got to delete that one too because it's not helpful. So my cheat sheet walks you through the process and shows you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And it's really helpful, so I recommend it. The next thing I want you to do is identify 10 media outlets that reach your audience. And there might be more than 10, but I want you to focus on 10 that you think are very important and keep it to 10 or fewer because otherwise you might get overwhelmed by the process. So focus on identifying the 10 media outlets. Then at those outlets, identify the right journalists at those publications or TV stations or radio stations or online news sites. Identify the right journalists for what you have to share and start to build relationships with them. For example, perhaps your book is about religion and your daily newspaper is important in your, for you, for reaching your target audience. And your daily newspaper has a religion reporter. Well, there you go. That's who you need to build a relationship with, is the religion reporter at your daily newspaper. It might also be the religion reporter at a magazine or at another city's daily newspaper. But you get the idea. You identify who are those people who are writing about or reporting on your topic. And you build relationships with them by connecting with them on social media, by sharing their stories, by providing, positive feedback on their stories and their segments, and by also sending them ideas for stories and segments that have nothing to do with you, but show those journalists that you know exactly what they report on, that show them that you know who they are and what their mission is. And they notice people like that. They notice people who have got them figured out and who are on their team, so to speak. And then once you've built these relationships, even though they're virtual, when you are ready to pitch them on a story, they will be receptive to you because they will know who you are and they will know that you're a good source of information. So when you pitch them, pitching is another word for selling or proposing. But when you're pitching them, you're giving them article ideas and you're doing it through email. And you're basically saying, here's an idea I think, your audience would be interested in. Here's why I think they'd be interested in it. Here's why I'm a good source for this. Here are some other people or organizations who would be good sources. And here's some background information that might help you. I hope you'll be interested. Please let me know if you'd like to schedule an interview. And the reason why you provide a lot of helpful information in that email is that the easier you make it for the journalist to do that story or that segment, the more likely they are to do it. So the more of their job you do for them, the more you're helping them, and the more likely they are to follow through. So help them out and be a reliable, dependable source of information. Now, our fourth option is podcast interviews. Podcasts are growing in popularity. Just a quick definition, if you aren't a listener of podcasts right now, if you don't enjoy them the same way I do, podcasts are audio programs. They're like radio talk shows, except they're not on the radio. They are online. I listen to podcasts on my smartphone, but I know a lot of people listen to them through their computers. And if you listen to them on your phone, you're using an app on your phone. If you're on a computer, you pull up a browser and you go to the site of one of these, the host for one of these apps. Podcast listenership is growing. Edison Research reported in 2017 that 40% of all Americans have listened to podcasts. In terms of demographics, they do skew male. 50% or 56% of podcast listeners are men. 46% are women. And in terms of age, so they skew male, and in terms of age, about 2/3 of podcast listeners are 35 years old or older. So if you're trying to reach teenagers, podcast probably not a real good option for you. But if you're trying to reach baby boomers, in particular male baby boomers or male Gen Xers, podcasts might be exactly what you need. Here are some of the essential how-tos. Again, know your audience. You need to know your book's target audience because that will make all of this a little bit easier for you. So you determine which of the podcasts reach your target audience. Now, if you write fiction, there are a lot of podcasts out there that are all about fiction and that share fiction. So do a quick Google search for podcasts about books, or podcasts for novels, or podcasts for fiction lovers. There's a lot out there. It's really pretty amazing. But there are also a couple of podcast search engines, sort of. And I've got two of them here on the screen for you. And of course, those links will be in the download that you have already grabbed. So know your audience and figure out which podcasts reach your target audience. Then, in the same way that you studied blogs that you might approach for guest blog posts, you study these podcasts, you listen to them, and you learn from them. What kind of content do they use? Do they use guests? Do they interview people? Do they bring in outside experts? If they don't, then it's probably not somebody you want to approach. But if they do, what's the pattern with the guests they bring in? Do they have something in common? So listen and learn, because when you reach out to them, it's important to let them know that you know who you're talking to, that you know who you're contacting. And so when you do have that figured out, then you pitch the host and again, propose a couple of topic ideas in the same way that you did with a guest blog post. Same exact process. The difference is you're proposing an interview rather than a written article. So you flatter them, you let them know that you are familiar with the podcast, you present a couple of ideas, you say, and hey, I'm open to other ideas too. And then after that, you follow up a couple of times. Podcasting is growing so much that if it does reach your target audience, and if you are comfortable doing these kinds of interviews, I strongly recommend that you give it a try. Now, our fifth idea that gives you a break from social media is public speaking. Now, this is another one of these options that are better suited for extroverts than for introverts. And if the thought of public speaking is making your shoulders tense up right now and maybe your fingers go cold, fast forward. Because if this gives you anxiety in a really serious way, in a way that's beyond, well, I really should push past my comfort zone. If it's making you really, really tense, then just fast forward and skip this. Because here is the beauty of all of these ideas we are going over in this course. There's something for everybody, and you don't have to do all of them, and you shouldn't do all of them. You should focus on those that are a good fit for you. And public speaking is not a good fit for everybody. I enjoy it, and I'll tell you why I enjoy it. And I will tell you that as a way to kind of bring you over to the dark side with me. I enjoy it because every time I make a presentation in person with real people, I learn so much from the questions and I learn so much from the feedback. I often get ideas for blog content. I get ideas for more books. I get ideas that I can pitch for podcast interviews. I get so much value from the audience that for me, it's worth pushing past my anxiety about not being a good speaker. So I just recommend that you be open to it. But if it really gives you hives, again, fast forward. But let's talk about how you get started in public speaking. The best advice I can give you is to start locally and expect to speak for free. I know a lot of authors think they see public speaking, understandably so. They see public speaking as an income source, and it can definitely be an income source. I will tell you that for my third book, which is about publicity for nonprofits, I earned more from speaking on that topic than I was paid to write the book in the form of an advance. So it can definitely be an income generator, but I didn't start right out the bat getting well paid for my presentations. I started locally and speaking for free, and that's really what the serious pros recommend as well. So the trick is identifying the local groups and organizations that reach your audience. And there are a number of ways you can do that, including newspaper. There's always newspaper event lists in a daily newspaper that will tell you, here are the meetings coming up this week. Those can be a good source of, I guess the way to put it is those list the organizations that use speakers. So that's a really good starting point. Also, some libraries have directories of local organizations. But you can also ask on Facebook. You can post and say, hey, local friends, I'm looking for speaking opportunities to talk about topic X. What groups do you belong to that you think might be interested? And you can start to gather information that way. So you need to figure out, who do you want to reach and what groups do they belong to? Then do some additional research about other groups that might be there that are appropriate. And if you write fiction, there are a lot, let's say you write women's fiction, your audience is women and you've written a novel. There are social clubs for women and there are country club groups for women who do have regular luncheons and who bring in speakers. So there are lots of local opportunities to talk if you are a novelist as well. And you can bet that a lot of the members of these groups want to write a book when they grow up and would love to hear about how you approach the process for your novel. So there are opportunities for both fiction and for nonfiction, but you'll have to do a little digging to find out what those opportunities are. And then once you know what the organizations are, then you need to get the contact information for the meeting planner. And again, if you know somebody who's a member, they can generally provide that information. Local chapters of associations often have websites, and they have that information on their websites as well. So who do you want to talk to? What groups do they belong to? What other groups serve that audience? Who is the meeting planner? What is their contact information? And then you email them with a few ideas. Again, it goes back to that model we talked about originally with guest blogging. You reach out, express interest. No need to suck up in this one because if you're not a member, you can't fake it, but you can say, I'm the author of book such and such. I'm looking for speaking opportunities to talk about topic XYZ. I believe it's a good fit for your membership. Would you be interested in a presentation on this topic or that topic? Or is there another topic you think your members would be interested in that I'd be well qualified to present on based on these credentials? And here are my credentials. And then, of course, ask them to get in touch with you. And if they do, bam, you're set. If they don't, follow up. But again, public speaking can make some people quite anxious, but for others, it's exactly what they need. And oh, by the way, if you are a memoir writer, public speaking is perfect for you because memoirs are so personal and readers like to know about the person behind that story. So if you are a memoirist and you see the value of public speaking but are a little uncomfortable with the idea, maybe get a little bit of training that helps you kind of push past that wall you've set up for yourself and explore public speaking because it is really good for selling memoirs. So number 6 is email marketing. One of my favorite tools, but not one of the favorite tools for many authors who find themselves overwhelmed a bit by the technology. But let me tell you why I think email marketing is so important. And let me tell you what it is and what it isn't. What it is, first, is a way for you to stay in touch with the people you wrote your book for. It is a way for you to stay in touch with your target audience. What it isn't is a way to constantly sell, sell, sell. And that's what makes a lot of people uncomfortable. As soon as you say, oh, do you have an email list? They go, oh, no, I'm no spammer. I'm no spammer. Well, if you're doing it properly, you aren't a spammer because it's not about constantly selling. It is about providing your target audience with information they want and need and are interested in receiving from you. So that's what it is and what it isn't. The next question is, why is it so important? And it's so important because you own your email list. And what I mean by that is if you put all of your efforts into, say, something like Facebook, which is that, social media thing that we are avoiding here. But a lot of authors will say to me, oh, I don't need email marketing. I've got Facebook. And whether they're talking about a Facebook profile, which is personal, or a Facebook page, which is professional, or maybe they've started a Facebook group, whatever. If Facebook goes away tomorrow, so does everything you've built up. All of your contacts go with that. You lose it all. Likewise, if all of your eggs are in the Twitter basket, Twitter disappears, so do all of your contacts. There goes your network. Doesn't work that way with email. With email, you've got those addresses and you own them. They are your property. So you don't lose them. So that's why email marketing can be so important for authors. First of all, you don't have to worry about things disappearing or the rug getting pulled out from underneath you. But secondly, it is such a great way to engage with your readers in a way that can be very, very meaningful. So on the technology side of it, you build an email list by using a service that lets you add an opt-in form to your website. An opt-in is marketing talk for sign myself up. It means I am opting to sign up to receive communication from you. I am choosing to do it. You don't do that for people. You don't add people to your list. It is permission-based marketing. They give you permission to email them, and that's why you use an opt-in form. So you have an opt-in form on your website, and maybe you have a sign-up sheet when you make presentations or do book signings. It's on a clipboard and it says, please add me to your newsletter list. And they give you their name and their email address. And then you go back to your computer and you add them manually. Key point, in order to have an opt-in form, you need an email service provider, which would be a company like MailChimp, which a lot of authors start with MailChimp because it's free for up to 2,000 subscribers. I know a lot of people who use one called Mad Mimi, and that's free for up to 100 subscribers. But after that, it's $10 a month for 500 subscribers. And then that amount increases with volume, but still affordable and easy to use. There are several others as well, and I'll include links to a few more in your download. But you need to be using a service like this, and that is because if you send bulk emails from your Outlook or your Gmail account, those messages won't get where they're going because servers will flag it as spam. They will flag those bulk mailings as spam, and your messages will get blocked. These companies like MailChimp and Constant Contact and Aweber, they've got it all figured out so that their messages don't get blocked. So you need them to make sure your messages get delivered, but you also need them for that opt-in form on your website. And this is where that sort of fear of technology comes in. All of these services have tutorials that help you add these components to your website and to use their services. You can also hire somebody to do it for you, and you can also get, a tech-savvy friend to help you with it. So where there's a will, there's a way, and I strongly recommend that you do use email marketing. One way to get people to sign up for your list using that opt-in form on your site is to offer what marketers call a lead magnet. And a lead magnet is also a freebie or an ethical bribe, and it's a digital download. It's a free gift that you give to them that they can download immediately. A lot of novelists offer either a free chapter from a book, or those who write a series might offer the first book in the series as a free download. That becomes their lead magnet. So fiction writers, one thing that works well is to offer a sample of their writing. With nonfiction, it might be some how-to information. It could be, I like to use cheat sheets. I have a couple of those that I offer as lead magnets. It could be templates. It could be some kind of guide Just think in terms of content that helps your audience solve a problem, and they will gladly add themselves to your list to get that quality content. And then the question is, what do you do with this list? What do you send them? You've got a couple of different options. I have a regular weekly newsletter that you can subscribe to, by the way, at buildbookbuzz.com/gift. That's buildbookbuzz.com/gift. I do a free weekly newsletter that contains a link to more how-to information online. So every week I publish a good how-to article on my blog, and I tell you about it in the newsletter I send out every Wednesday morning. So you could be that frequent. You could send a monthly newsletter, or you could just send out occasional announcements that you think your list would be interested in. It's up to you on frequency. But what you need to do is not focus on yourself, but focus on your readers. Make it about them. And this is where this concept of spam comes in. If you focus on making your content about them and not about yourself, and if you focus on providing them with information they welcome, information they need or want or might be interested in, you will be golden, and your messages won't be viewed as spam because they will be helpful. And I know from experience, because my emails only focus on helpful information. And every time I send out a newsletter, I get a slew of responses saying, thank you so much. I love this idea. Or they say, yours is the only newsletter I don't delete, as soon as I see it in my inbox. And that's not rocket science. It's just giving people helpful information. And you can do that too. And that's how you get around that spam idea. So please give it some thought and think about how email can support you. And by the way, when you write fiction, email is a great way to find beta readers, and it's a great way to find reviewers for your book as well. So take it seriously. Our seventh one is book signings. And I especially like this picture because this is my friend Marcia Layton Turner at a book signing at Barnes & Noble for one of her books, which was The Complete Idiot's Guide to Vision Boards. So let's talk about why Marcia's book signing was so successful and how your book signing might also be successful. Two things. The first one does not apply to Marcia's situation. So let's set her aside for a minute. First thing I want you to do is think beyond bookstores to venues that are already frequented by your target audience. In other words, other than bookstores, where does your target audience hang out? Let's go back to this idea of fitness over 50. Your book's fitness over 50, random subtitle. If your book is about fitness, why not have a book signing at a health club? And let's say it's fitness over 50 for women. There is the Curves Health Club chain, and so maybe there's a Curves location near you. But in general, if it's about fitness, think about a health club, a gym for a book signing. Maybe your book is about hairstyles of the 20th century. Well, you might do a book signing at a big popular hair salon. You see where I'm going with this. You want to be looking past bookstores to venues where you're already going to find your audience. For example, if you write children's books, do a book signing at a toy store. Do a book signing at a children's museum. But think past bookstores. That's key. And then the other key piece, which is what my friend Marcia did at Barnes & Noble, is engage the audience with a presentation. Now, what Marcia did was she and Barnes & Noble worked together to acquire poster board and magazines and catalogs and glue and tape and magic markers. And what they did was, Marcia had people in the audience create vision boards. So Marcia did a presentation on how to create a vision board based on her book. And then everybody who attended, and there was probably 36 people there, everybody who attended started creating their own vision boards. And Marcia worked the room, giving them tips and advice, and the people loved it. And Marcia sold a ton of books because people thought they got a taste of it and they thought, I want more. I want more of this author's advice. So she did very, very well with book sales. And of course, the store was very happy with her. That was an engaging presentation. What you don't want to do is what so many authors do, and that's reading from their book. I'm going to clue you in right now. If we're at a bookstore or we're at an event specifically to hear about a new book, we already know how to read. You do not need to read to us. What we want is behind the scenes information. Why did you choose those characters' names? You must have given some thought. What is the significance of those names? Or why did you choose that location as the setting? Or, oh my gosh, you write science fiction. That's so creative. How did you come up with this idea? How do you approach your books? Give us behind the scenes information. For nonfiction, it might be, addressing, think of the questions you hear most from people. And it might be, as you research this book, what surprised you the most about the topic? Or was there any part of this book that was especially fun for you to research? Or was writing this book painful for you? In the case of a memoir, tell us more about the people in the book as well, or your story behind the book. But in any case, don't read to us. Tell us things give us information we're not going to get from the book. So think in terms of sharing special information during a book signing. And I've got a link here to an article on my blog, a guest post. That'll be a good example for you. A guest post from an author who is not a celebrity, but sold out at her book signing. And it's a pretty cool story. Now, number 8, group events with other authors. And you're probably familiar with this concept. It's a group of authors who collaborate to have an author's day at a bookstore or probably a library. Some key how-tos for this idea. Start with your library or start with the bookstore community coordinator to say to them, hey, can we work together? Here's my idea. Can we work together on this? Local librarians and, of course, local booksellers many times know who the local authors are. So even if you're well connected, they can probably connect you with even more people. So first of all, if you want to host it there, of course you have to collaborate with them and start with them. But secondly, they bring a lot more value to it than just providing you with a location. They can help you bring in the right people. Note that somebody needs to be the organizer here. Somebody needs to be in charge. And maybe it's the librarian, maybe it's the community services coordinator at the bookstore, or maybe it's you as the author who comes up with this idea. But somebody does need to be in charge. You might have a committee, but somebody's got to make sure the trains run on time. Something you want to think about is whether you want to have several genres as part of this, meaning authors who write in different genres. You might in your area have authors who write children's books, YA books, nonfiction how-to. There can be such a wide range. And if you're in a small area, that's probably your safe bet, is to make sure you include as many authors as possible. If you're in a larger market, you might be able to focus on just a genre. It could be maybe like around Halloween, you do a mystery author's day at the library. But think about what might work best for your purposes as well as what's available in the community. And make sure everybody who participates works to promote the event. You all have to let everybody in your network know about the event. And one way to do that is to give them language and images they can use. Create some image quotes that they can share on social media with the details of the event. Give them some tweets and some Facebook posts they can share. But, give them some information to work with and then stay on top of them to make sure that everybody does share information, because when you all work together to promote an event, really the sum is greater than the parts, or a cliche that sounds like that. Number 9, who doesn't like a book club? And who doesn't like speaking to a book club? Obviously, extroverts love it. Introverts are a little less inclined, but for introverts, it's a smaller group and it's a more intimate group. So this can be sort of your gateway drug to public speaking. If you can get comfortable with book clubs, you might be able to kind of up things and start speaking to larger audiences. Book clubs, as you know, are gatherings of individuals who meet generally monthly to talk about a book that somebody selects. It really helps to have library distribution when you want to speak to a book club because, of course, book club members like to borrow books as much as possible. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of book club members do like to borrow from the library. So bonus points to you if you've got library distribution. And it really is a good idea to have a book club reading guide on your website for 2 reasons. 1, it tells book clubs that you do book clubs, but 2, it gives the book club some structure. They've got a starting point. They sort of know how to handle your appearance with them because you've given them guidelines. Now, as with speaking, it's always good to start locally so you can be there in person. But as you get more experience and as word spreads about what a great book you've got and what a great book club guest you are and how much clubs enjoyed having you there, you might find yourself getting invitations from book clubs that are farther afield, and you might be reluctant to travel farther afield for probably good reasons. Never fear, Skype is here. You can participate with book clubs anywhere just by using Skype. So keep that in mind. And if you're thinking Skype, isn't that technology? It's the easiest technology in the world. And if you don't have it, somebody can show you how to use it for sure. But it is a great way to join a book club that loves your book from afar. So I've done this before. I've spoken to groups by Skype, and it's really a lot of fun. You just have to make sure you're having a good hair day. That's all. It's a lot easier than buying a plane ticket. Now, when you start doing book club appearances, take photos. Take photos and share them on, social media. All right, there is that one way that I've thrown social media in here for sure. But you can also share them in a newsletter, and you can share them on your website, so it doesn't have to be social media. But what's interesting about sharing photos about book club appearances is that it's sort of a success breeds success. The more people see these photos, the more they think about you and the more they read your book and bring you in. I've got a link here to an article titled, How One Author Turned the Internet into a Giant Book Club. She set a goal of speaking to 100 book clubs, and she hit it. And she says she did that in large part because she shared pictures from book club meetings. So don't discount that. That could be a really good tool for you. So that was our 9th one. Let's talk about which ones are the best for you and your book. Here's what you need to take into account. We've gone over 9 different tactics, and you've got to be thinking, some probably feel more natural to you than others, and you're thinking, well, how do I decide which ones I use? Take into account your book genre or category or topic, because some of them lend themselves to some of these options more than others. Take into account your personality. If you're an introvert, you're going to cross a couple of things off your list. If you're an extrovert, you're going to jump on a couple of these things. But personality is an important part of this, and don't let anybody tell you it isn't. The third thing you'll look at is what you do best. I'm a writer, so I gravitate toward opportunities to write. So I'm all over guest blogging. That is practically a hobby for me. It's it's just what I do best, but it's also what I enjoy. I just love writing. So that's at the top of my list. And then, of course, take into account your technology skills. I am all for learning more. And I think learning how to use some of the technology I've talked about in this class can help you expand your horizons. And none of it is overly technical, because if I can do it, anybody can do it. But so consider these 4 things: book genre, category, topic, then your personality, then what you do best, and your tech skills. I want to give you a couple of examples of how you might apply this. If your book is a memoir, here are some of these that work best for you: speaking, guest blogging, book clubs, and podcasts. If you're a fiction writer, blog Q&As, which is a question and answer versus a guest article, book signings and book fairs, book clubs, and group events with other authors. If you write nonfiction how-to, some of those tactics that work best for your book will be speaking, guest blogging, podcast interviews, and email marketing. This is just a sample. Email marketing works well for all of them. I pull it out for nonfiction how-to because it's especially good for email marketing. And obviously, this does not cover all books, but it gives you a sense of how to figure out which of these tactics might work best for your book. You just sort of apply this same kind of thinking. And finally, please track your activities and the results from them. This is really important because your goal is to do more of what works and less of what doesn't work. And your goal is to do more of what you enjoy, which is why we're talking about this today. If you don't enjoy Twitter, why would you be using Twitter even though everybody tells you that's where it's at? And oh, by the way, it's not where it's at, but people still tell you that anyway. But my point is, even if Twitter is a really good fit for your book, if you hate it or you don't understand it, you're just going to procrastinate. And when you do tweet, you're going to be uncomfortable and unhappy. And that's just not a good situation for you. So you want to figure out what's working and what isn't. And that will help you, and tracking that will help you figure out, both of those points. And then you'll know what you enjoy doing the most. And if what's working is also what you enjoy the most, then you have hit the jackpot, right? Well, that brings us to the end of this course. I want to thank you so much for the privilege of your time. Please let me know if you have questions. Here is my contact information, my email address. I hope you'll join my book marketing group on Facebook. And by all means, sign up for my newsletter so that I can send you more helpful content every Wednesday morning. But thank you so much. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to working with you again in the future.